The architect of agony, Josef Fritzl, was born in 1935, a child of a broken home, beaten by a mother he later claimed he redirected his warped desires toward. By the time he was 49, he'd built a life that looked stable. Married to Rosemarie, father to 7 children, a successful electrician with properties to his name. But beneath this facade, he'd been crafting something sinister. In the 1970s, he began constructing a dungeon under his family home. A warren of cramped rooms, no more than 600 square feet, sealed behind 8 locked doors and a reinforced concrete slab. On August 28, 1984, he lured 18-year-old Elizabeth to the basement with a lie about needing help with a door. It was the last time she'd see the sun for over 2 decades. He knocked her out with ether, chained her to a bed, and began a reign of terror that would span 24 years. To the world above, Fritzl spun a tale. Elizabeth had run off to join a cult. He forced her to write letters to support the lie, mailed from distant towns. Rosemarie, oblivious or willfully blind, accepted it. Meanwhile, in the cellar, Fritzl raped Elizabeth relentlessly, sometimes multiple times a day, impregnating her 8 times. 7 children were born in that dank prison, each delivery a solitary, agonizing ordeal with no medical help, just a pair of dirty scissors and a 1960s childbirth book. One child, a twin, died days after birth in 1996, his body burned by Fritzl in a furnace. 3, Kirsten, Stefan, and Felix, remained underground with their mother, never knowing daylight. The other 3, Lisa, Monica, and Alexander, were taken upstairs, passed off as foundlings to Rosemarie and the authorities. Childhood in chains, imagine being born into darkness, not the poetic kind, but a literal suffocating void. For Kirsten, Stefan, and Felix, this was their reality. The cellar was their universe, a 5'6" ceiling pressing down, walls dripping with damp, rats scurrying in corners. There were no windows, no breeze, no birdsong, just the hum of a flickering bulb and the sound of their father's footsteps descending the stairs. They grew up breathing stale air, their skin pale and soft from a life without sun. Their mother, Elizabeth, was their only tether to humanity, a woman broken yet fiercely protective, teaching them to read and write with whatever scraps Fritzl allowed. What must it have been like to be those children? To wake each day to the same gray walls, to know nothing of grass or sky, to hear your mother scream behind a locked door as the man who brought you into existence inflicted unspeakable acts. They watched Fritzl rape Elizabeth, their tiny minds grappling with a horror they couldn't name. He'd turn off the lights for days as punishment, leaving them in pitch blackness, or withhold food until their bellies ached. He showed them photos of their siblings upstairs, children playing in sunlight they'd never touch, twisting the knife of their isolation. Kirsten, the eldest at 19 when freed, had never felt rain or seen a star. Stefan, 18, grew hunched from the low ceiling, his body warped by confinement. Felix, just 5, clung to Elizabeth, his world so small that the sound of a door unlocking was his only measure of time. They were prisoners not just of the cellar, but of Fritzl's mind, a place where love was replaced by control, where their existence was a byproduct of his depravity. Did they dream of escape, or did they even know what outside meant? Elizabeth once said she kept them alive by telling them stories of a world beyond the walls, a world she feared they'd never see. The upstairs lie upstairs Lisa, Monica, and Alexander lived a different torment. Raised by Fritzl and Rosemarie, they were told their mother had abandoned them, a fiction reinforced by the foundling notes Fritzl staged. They went to school, played in the yard, breathed fresh air, but they lived under the shadow of a man who beat them for small infractions, his temper a constant threat. They didn't know their siblings languished below, or that their grandfather was their father, a secret that would shatter them when it surfaced. Their lives were a cruel parody of normalcy, built on lies and the screams they never heard. The breaking point, the nightmare unraveled in April 2008. Kirsten fell gravely ill, renal failure from years of malnutrition and confinement. Elizabeth begged Fritzl to take her to a hospital, and he relented, perhaps sensing the end was near. Doctors, alarmed by Kirsten's condition and eerie pallor, alerted police. Elizabeth seized her chance, escaping with Stefan and Felix when Fritzl let her visit the hospital. She told authorities everything, her voice trembling but resolute after 24 years of silence. Fritzl was arrested days later, his empire of terror collapsing as the world recoiled in horror. Seer The aftermath. In March 2009, Fritzl faced trial. Elizabeth's 11-hour video testimony, too harrowing for jurors to watch more than 2 hours at a time, laid bare his crimes: rape, incest, enslavement, and negligent homicide for the twins' death. He pleaded guilty, sentenced to life in a psychiatric prison. Now 89, frail and demented, he clings to delusions of family forgiveness, a grotesque footnote to his legacy. Elizabeth and her children were given new identities, moved to a fortified house in northern Austria. Therapy continues to mend their fractured minds. Kirsten's physical scars linger, Stefan's posture a permanent echo of the cellar, Felix's wide-eyed wonder at the world a bittersweet triumph. The upstairs children grapple with the truth. Their mother didn't abandon them, and their grandfather was a monster. A darkness too deep. What Josef Fritzl did wasn't just evil, it was a theft of humanity. For Elizabeth, it stole her youth, her freedom, her body. For her children, it stole their right to a childhood, to innocence, to a world beyond concrete and pain. The cellar is sealed now, filled with concrete, but the echoes of their suffering linger. How do you heal from a life where your first breath was in a prison, where your father was your captor, where love was a lie? The Fritzl case isn't just a story, it's a wound on the soul of humanity, a reminder of the depths one man can sink to, and the resilience it takes to rise from them.